Hello everyone. So today's lesson is going to be making a princess seamed bodice. This is not a princess dress. This is a princess seamed bodice. Now we've talked about princess seams before, so I'm hoping some of this rings a bell. But the princess seams are the lines that divide the half the body into quarters. Okay. So if you look down right here, it's hard to see, but that line there, that's our princess seam. Okay. Technically that's a princess seam, but this is really the one we're talking about. This one goes all the way down the mannequin and as well as the back. Okay, starts at the top and goes all the way down to the back here. Okay, now if you remember, this is where we've been placing our waist dart. Okay, we've been using this line, and I've been kind of fanatical about making sure you line up that line with the princess seam. That's going to make this part relatively easy. Okay, and our front dart usually on our waist usually lines up to here as well. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is we need copies of our pattern. Okay, so again, take your pattern, keep a clean copy. I keep saying that, but keep a clean copy. And this time you're going to need front and back because we're actually going to alter the back as well. Sorry if I tap emphatically on the screen, it shakes the whole thing. Okay, so we're going to start with that. Okay, again, my printer has a copy feature, so I have a copy. And now you know the next step is going to be cutting off the seam allowance. Okay, this should start to feel repetitive. Because it is. It's the same skills. We're just applying them different ways. We'll talk in class about how to the actual applications of this in fashion, so I can start to show you some examples of what this has historically looked like. Okay, so make sure I have my instructions out. This is only the second time I filmed this, so far we're doing well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, I know this is going to seem a little counterintuitive. We have one dart in here. We actually need to add two. Okay, again, this will add up eventually. So we're going to do something which is familiar. Again, we want to make sure that our bust point, our apex, is on there, and at that cross line there, we're going to do a line that goes through there off to the seam allowance. There's side seam, sorry. Again, make sure that you're staying perpendicular to center front, and we're just going to draw a line from the bust point apex over to the side there. Okay. We're also going to do something else that should be familiar to you. Okay. We're going to draw a line. We're going to extend our dart line, just the center leg, up to the bust dart. Okay, so we've added that line and that line. While we're here, I want to go ahead. We need to find the center of our shoulder. Okay. We'll come back to this, but and again, you could measure. I like folding, so okay. So I'm gonna do something so you can see what I'm actually doing. On this center line, the center of our dart line, again, you do not have to do this. I'm just putting a red line there so you can keep an eye on where that line's going to move. Okay. You don't need to do that. Just makes it easier to see on the video. Okay, so we're going to do two cuts. We're going to cut up that center line of the dart. And again, if we can leave it attached right at the top. And then we're going to cut across to the new line we just drew. Same thing, leave it attached there. Okay. And we need a little bit of tape, piece of tape. Okay. Now we're going to take this dart and we're going to make it half the size it is. Okay. So we're going to fold that dart into there. So we're just taking that center line and we're matching it to the leg of the dart that way. Okay. Now, let's backtrack for a second. So hopefully now you see what we've just done, and this should look familiar to you because this is what we draped in the class, or we patterned in the class, that we have a side bust dart and we have a waist dart. Okay, and by making this half the size, we've now allowed space for that. Okay, so the waist dart is now technically an inch at the bottom, and it's about 3/4 of an inch at the side dart there. Okay, that's not going to matter much. We just need that as a means to the end. Okay. So the next thing I want you to do is very carefully draw a kind of gentle curving line that starts at the bust point, okay, and goes up to the center of your shoulder here. Now again, this would matter, that line matters based on your design, based on what the designer has actually picked and what the research is. Okay, we don't have a designer in this case, so it's your call. But keep it a relatively smooth curved line down to the front there. Okay. Do one other really important step right here. Okay, we're going to cut this into two pieces. Okay, and we need to make sure that we have our grain line. Okay, now right now we know that our grain line runs with center front because we place center front on the seam. Okay, so we're going to move over from the center front, pick a measurement. It doesn't really need to be precise. It needs to be precise in that it needs to be perpendicular. Okay, we need to make sure that that line is perpendicular, and we're going to put a line here on the end of the ruler. So I just measured over 3.5 inches. Again, as long as you're perpendicular there. Okay, this is our grain line. This is going to be our grain line for this piece when we disconnect it from that piece. This is really important. This is why I had to redo this video, because I skipped that step. Okay. The other thing I want you to do is from your bust point, your apex, okay, measure up 1 inch, put a line all the way across both seams, and you're going to measure down from that. And this time you're going to measure down on that line, and you're just going to put a mark that goes all the way through like that. Okay. Now those are going to be our notches. Those are going to be really important because we're going to need those to match up together when we actually go to sew this. Now we're going to cut. Before I cut, I'm going to do a little bit more tape just because I don't want this shifting on me. Okay. We're going to now cut all the way up this line, all the way up to the shoulder. Now we have two pieces. We have our center front piece, okay, and we have our side front piece. We're going to go ahead, again, tape. Who knew I liked tape so much? Okay, we're going to basically close this dart up and tape it together right there. Okay. Now, we need to even out that bottom edge right there, so we can cut off that bottom seam allowance right underneath there. And if this is a little puckery right there, just go ahead and flatten it down. Okay. And then the other thing we need to do, again, it depends. This is the fourth time I've done this, so mine is turning out pretty good. You just want to make sure that this doesn't come to a point. Okay. If you look right now, it looks like it almost comes to a little bit of a point. We just need to smooth that out a little bit. Okay. So I'm just kind of taking off that little bit of a point there. And then on this side, this is going to be a little bit of a curved line. You just want to check it to make sure that it's actually, relatively straight. Okay. Anything we cut off of this, that's really minuscule. So I'm not really going to worry about that too much. It's like not even 1/8 of an inch. Okay. You just want to make sure that that's relatively smooth. Okay. So that's our front. We're going to cut this, still cut this on the fold. Okay, and then we're going to cut this. We're going to cut 2 of these, all right? And then we're going to, when we sew it together, we're adding our seam allowance, so we're adding 1/4 inch, and then we're going to match up, when we sew it, we're going to match up that point to that point, okay? Now, it looks like it's a little bit off at the bottom. It won't be. All of this, especially this line and this line, they're both on the angle. So they're both not true bias, but they're on a bias line. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit of stretch and a little bit of play in there, especially when we're connecting these. These marks are really important though, because we want to make sure that this eases out correctly. We don't want it to be puckery. We want it to kind of fit together perfectly, and it should, because your pattern should be fine. Okay, now the back is super easy. Well, the back is easy, I think. All right, sorry you have to watch me cut paper again. I think I'm going to start a channel that's just me cutting things. Paper, I can move the fabric, I don't know. Wood, plastic, I don't know. Just an idea. Okay, I think hopefully you kind of understand where this is going to go. Maybe we should have started with the back because it's going to be easy. Okay, same thing. We need to find the center of our shoulder line or a shoulder seam. We're going to fold that, put a mark. Okay, now we're going to take this And we're going to draw a line that comes from our center line here all the way up to the center of our shoulder. Again, the design would indicate what you need to do. Okay? In this case, you don't have a design. So now, notch it. So we're going to use the top of our dart as our notching point. So we're going to put an inch above and then measure down an inch below and go all the way across that. Oh, I skipped one. I skipped the... Okay, so now we're not even gonna worry about that center, right? We're gonna cut right on our dart line. And we go all the way up to the shoulder. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing, get rid of that dart. Okay, then you wanna make sure, again, that those lines are relatively smooth. So there's a little bit of a bumpy part right in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna smooth that out. It's either bad pencil drawing or bad cutting. Okay, and that's our back bodice. So, if you look at this now, we have our center front, we have our side front, our side back, our center back. Okay, you want to go ahead and mark these because you don't want to confuse these. This is side B, okay, and this is side front. Oh, and you should all realize that I made a mistake, right? All right, this one hopefully is a little easier to fix. I knew I would forget this. What did I forget? Anybody? Bueller? Okay. I did not mark our seam allowance, our grain line on there. Okay. So again, we can retape that back together again, and we're going to move over, and we're just going to, again, the measurement's not important, just as long as you're staying perpendicular to the center back. And then I'm going to draw a line there. You really should do that before you cut. Okay. These grain lines are important though because we have no other way of knowing where to line up this fabric. Okay. There you go. So center front on the fold, quarter inch, side front, quarter inch, side back, quarter inch, and then center back. Okay. You're going to cut that out of fabric, and you're going to do the same thing. Make sure you're matching your notches. Make sure you use those notches to your advantage to make sure things match up together. Okay. Good luck. We'll talk about it in class, but let me know if you have any questions. All right. Bye.